This is 50-mile-an-hour wind, and this is the Vauxhall Astra Sports Tourer plug-in hybrid. And in this video, if I don't get blown away, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why it's the best estate to buy on the market. And then I'm going to give you 5 reasons why it probably isn't, and why you might want to consider some of its rivals. Let's go. But before we get to that, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you want more videos like this. And when you're searching for your next car, check out cinch.co.uk or download our app. The first thing is potentially the most obvious, and that is this car's design. Just like the hatchback, the Sports Tourer is a very handsome machine. It wears that bigger back end well, and versus its rivals, dare I say it, it's the most interesting car in the market, especially in this optional shade of blue paint. And handily, things are similarly good inside. Because the interior of this latest generation Astra is actually quite different from its rivals. Firstly, you've got a big digital setup ahead of you here, but you've also got some unique features. There's lots of straight lines on the dash, like on these vents over here. And I really like this 3-spoke design on the steering wheel. Not only does it feel nice to use, it's nice and simple, but it also looks pretty good ahead of you as well. Now, another strong point of this Astra plug-in hybrid is the fact that its electric setting is actually really very good. Now, Vauxhall claims you get 42 miles of usable electric range when the battery is fully charged. I have to admit, this morning when it was almost fully charged, I didn't see over 30, but it is much colder today, as you can probably tell. So I tested it through the city, drove out of London, and actually I didn't turn the engine on once. It was really very good. And while it wasn't fully charged, I managed to get it up to full charge pretty quickly, because as soon as I got on the motorway, I switched on maximum charge mode, which basically turns the engine into a generator as well. And so the battery was back up to full, and I've managed to use quite a bit of EV range, even while out in the country here. But also, if you do want performance, and you click it into sport mode, as I will do now, you'll wake up that petrol engine, it will drop down a couple of gears. You've got an automatic 8-speed gearbox. It's pretty quick. Sub 8 seconds to 62 miles per hour, so it's not going to break your head off your neck, but at the same time, rolling acceleration is nice and strong. If I'm going to make a complaint, it's that the gearbox can be a little bit hesitant when you put your foot down quickly. If you ask suddenly for an acceleration, you feel the electric push you along, so now I've let it click up into 7th speed out of the 8 speed. Put my foot down, I get a nice kick from the electric, but then the petrol engine isn't quite ready to pick up and give me a smooth delivery after that. The gearbox has to go, oh hang on, drop down a couple of gears, and then it gives me the power. But handily, you do have shift paddles behind the steering wheel, so if I really want power, if I see an overtaking opportunity, for example, I've clicked down to 4th, put my foot down, electric gives me a shove, and then I can actually feel the engine doing its job as well. So you can work around the hesitancy of the automatic gearbox with using these paddles behind the wheel. Now, another thing I really like about this Vauxhall is the functionality of its interior, and that really matters in a plug-in hybrid sports tourer because it's a sensible car. Now, firstly, the infotainment system is pretty easy to use. Definitely not the best and definitely not the easiest, but firstly, it's not laggy. And how important is that? It means it actually works and responds as you want it to. And crucially, it's got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wirelessly as well, so that's going to be a big win for people. I do also like the graphics when you get into things like the energy display, but they're slightly nerdier. When it comes to the physical stuff in the cabin, you've also got a good amount of buttons, so you've got shortcuts to go to your climate control. I wish they had actual climate control dials, but they don't. But at least you just press one button here and you're where you want to be. And you've got lots of storage space, despite actually this not being the biggest sense console. You've got a bit for your sunglasses down here, you've got somewhere to put your phone in there, cup holders, key space, stuff like that in here, door pockets, you name it, is pretty practical. And something I really like is the voice control technology on this car, which actually works. For example, hey Vauxhall, turn the heating up to maximum. There you go, actually works on the move as well. Right, the next best thing, if you can withstand the rain, is the fact that this car's boot, despite having batteries in the floor, is still pretty usable. In fact, you still get a bit of underfloor storage, space for your cables, and space down there for smaller items. And the floor itself is nice and flat, and you've got a protected lip down here. Plus, bits of storage on the side as well. Oh, and a quite unique thing for this car is, not only can you lower the seats with handles over here, but it also splits apart in 3 ways, meaning you've got a ski hatch in the middle, which is pretty handy. But if you can't get everything in the boot, you've also got standard fit roof racks as well. Nifty. Oh. Now, another good feature of this Astra is the fact that it's very refined. Now, this is a 40 grand car, or damn near it anyway, so you'd expect it to feel quite premium, but I have to admit, given the size of it, given that it's got fairly large tyres and wheels, and of course the fact that this thing runs quite a lot in electric mode, or at least with the engine doing minimal work, well, there's a good opportunity for me to hear creaks, rattles, wind noise, you name it. But no, it's pretty well insulated in here. I do feel like I'm sat, and I certainly felt this morning driving through town, like I was sat in a very well cocooned place. Yes, I can hear the rain on the windows, but that's true for every car out there. It is actually nicely put together. It feels solid on the road, and you've got some really handy driver assistance features as well, all standard fit on this GS model. You get, as standard, adaptive cruise control, which does work very well actually. It's a little bit annoying at points if a car merges into your lane on the motorway. Sometimes it will hit the brakes a bit too hard, but mostly it just allows you to really relax while driving on the motorway. And the steering assist as well, the assistance that pushes you back into your lane if you just move across, isn't too intrusive. It's just about the right amount. It's well judged, I would say. So for long distance drivers, people who do big commutes on the motorway, or who find themselves driving up the country for a weekend getaway, well, you're probably going to appreciate how easy this thing and how comfortable and refined it is in a noise sense. That's going to make your journey much easier. Now, to kick off the things I'm not so keen about in this car, and things that might leave you wanting another model in this segment, I'm going to talk about handling, something I didn't expect to really highlight as a negative in this car, because when I drove the lighter and simpler petrol hatchback without any hybrid tech, I actually thought it handled really well. But because this plug-in hybrid, with its battery in the boot and also this Sports Tourer being heavier, I must say that handling isn't actually a strong point anymore. It's okay, and it steers perfectly fine, and you certainly won't find yourself having any tricky scenarios. I'm driving in about the worst condition you can imagine for a September day. It's just not as entertaining or as enjoyable to go through bends as I remember the lighter petrol hatchback being. That felt nice and keen to turn in. This just feels a bit heavier, a bit lazier, a bit soft. You've got the nice electric oomph, of course, to carry you out of the bends, and I must say the brakes are pretty strong as well, if not a bit grabby. But it's just not as exciting to drive this car as I had hoped. I really did think maybe this would be up there with the Focus estate, but actually instead, it just feels sensible.
Another area of weakness for this Astra Sports Tourer is rear legroom space. While it is definitely a long car, it doesn't have as much room in the back compared to models like the Volkswagen Golf estate, Seat Leon estate, or even estate versions of the Ford Focus and Skoda Octavia. It's far from being impractical, but if it's rear space you're after, this Astra definitely can't top the charts.
The next thing that I'm not so keen on in this car is actually its ride. I have to admit, over higher speed sections and on B roads like this where you can start to flow over the bumps, it does actually do pretty well, and I don't doubt this thing could carry some heavy weight in the back of it. You can really feel there's some squidge in the tail. But over some of the rougher sections of road, and when I was driving around town this morning, it did feel a bit fidgety, and I think that was the main thing I took from it, was just how it felt quite busy as a ride. And that's okay if you live in a country with smooth roads, but in the UK where there are cracks and ridges, it did feel like I was kind of instinctively driving around small imperfections in the road. Things that I probably wouldn't do if I was driving a softer sprung car, or a car maybe with a slightly different tuning at some part in its spring. It's okay, the car can handle the bends and handle the bumps, but there are just points when you go, oh, I am noticing how rubbish this road is. Now, another thing that annoys me about this Vauxhall is to do with some of the materials in its interior. Firstly, there is shiny piano black on surfaces that you touch all the time. So look, today it's raining and there is water marked everywhere all over this piano black. And also on other bits, there's really scratchy surfaces, and they're really big as well. Like this whole door section here feels pretty cheap. And when you're spending close to 40k on a car, well, yeah, that ain't great.
And then to our final point of concern, the elephant in the room, the price. At just over £40,000 as it sits here, the Astra Sports Tourer looks like a premium product on paper. And it does in the metal, to be fair. But the Astra badge, or more importantly, the Vauxhall badge, might not feel so premium to your average UK buyer, especially if they're looking to purchase a car outright. That being said, finance buyers, and in particular, company car drivers, might find it a lot easier to justify, not least because this is genuinely a lot of car for the money.
So that concludes the wettest car review I've ever done. 5 things I like and 5 things I'm not so sure about when it comes to this Astra Sports Tourer plug-in hybrid, although overall it's definitely a likeable car, especially if you're a company car buyer. When it comes to that, it's almost a no-brainer. Sensible, good looking and decent to drive and very easy to live with. It's a really, really strong car. But if you're buying outright, you may be tempted by some of its rivals, especially ones with slightly more premium badges. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Would you take this over its rivals, or would you go for something with a different badge on its nose? Of course, if you like the video as well, give us a thumbs up, and please do subscribe because I'm absolutely soaked right now and I need to know it was worth it. Oh.